Welcome to the What If It's Not Depression Vodcast. I'm your host, Dr. Achina Stein. And today I am interviewing Dr. Kasia Kines. She is a doctor of clinical nutrition and the CEO and founder of Global Epstein Barr Virus Institute. Can you guess what we're going to talk about today? She's a leader in recovery therapy for chronic EBV, author and wellness expert, and she is a highly respected doctor of clinical nutrition, a graduate of the prestigious Bastyr University. And since 2005, Dr. Kines has built an international reputation as a functional nutritionist, from being sought after by Johns Hopkins University for her groundbreaking Amazon bestseller book, Epstein Barr Virus Solutions. And I have a copy, but I left it at my other office. So I wish I had it with me to show everyone. It's a real thick volume of lots and lots of information. Yeah. She developed an effective proprietary evidence-based methodology to Epstein Barr virus recovery and successful Epstein Barr virus recovery program for those suffering from Epstein Barr virus, and also trains other practitioners in her methodology in clinician Epstein Barr virus training and certification program and Epstein Barr virus practitioner workshop. Mm-hmm. She's a passionate advocate for debunking common misinformation about Epstein Barr virus in the medical community and lectures on this topic extensively. She's on a mission to bring the truth about Epstein Barr virus and solutions to 1 million people globally, so no one ends up suffering needlessly for this misunderstood virus and its complications. Yep. She lives with her husband and their companion animals in Friday Harbor on San Juan Island, Washington. Welcome, Dr. Kasia Kines.
I am so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. So let's just dive in and tell us, how did you even get into this?
Well, when a student is ready, the teacher appears. And basically, I'm the end of the process. I'm just at the receiving end. And I don't feel like I'm any special. It's just having challenges in my practice and listening and taking the next step. And I feel I've been guided. And I feel I'm just a messenger. I just, somebody else could have been on my journey. Mm-hmm. So as you know, when you go into functional practice, you attract patients and clients that are just, we don't like to use the term, but they're complicated. And we try to untangle all these complications and figure out why they have those mystery chronic illnesses. And, in medical literature, they call them refractory. They don't respond to what we do. And we do so much good work. And then sometimes there are those patients that we get stuck, and not for the lack of trying. They will do everything we ask them, and we do everything right. And then there's something in that space that we don't know.
Yeah, like, and what is it? What is it?
What is it? What is it? What is it? And so we have those cases, right?
Absolutely.
And it's demoralizing because we can change 100 lives, and then there's one person that we can't quite crack it, and it breaks our hearts, and we always think about that person, and it's just so hard to come from the heart space, and so we get really depressed almost because there is no way to help them.
Right.
And so I had cases like that, and then
no way yet.
Yeah, exactly. There's always a reason, there's always a way, but we don't know it. Like there's gaps. Yeah. And so
but I just wanted to stop you there, because I think that is the art of medicine and taking care of people, is knowing that what you don't know, knowing that, I think it's more harmful to say, nope, this is what it is. Sorry. You're at the end of the rope. And I really think no one can know everything. It's important to know what you don't know and refer to, and hopefully find someone who might know. Right. And putting that person on that path. Right.
That's why I'm so excited that I know about you now. And so I can tell my tribe there's need to have your services and benefit from them.
And vice versa. Yeah.
And so there was a time when this book, Medical Medium, came to market, and a couple of my patients asked me, what is your educated opinion? And here I am, completely no life, no time, no balance in life, overworked. So I bought a book and took it on a plane when I was, flying to, I think it was a conference. So I go, okay, I'll read it because a couple of them asked me, so I have to have educated opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting on the plane and I almost fell off my chair because I was reading about my patients, like, ooh, who is that person, this medical medium? And and then another thing was, I watched a very close friend of mine in Poland slowly die of complications of multiple sclerosis. And there was nothing I could do. And she was diagnosed literally 6 months before I immigrated permanently to the States. I remember she told me I ended up in ER in December. I don't know why, something happened out of the blue and I was paralyzed in half of my body. And so almost 20 years of my immigration, when I know why I was creating my life in a new country, she was fighting for her life. And sorry, nutrition was my second career. And so as I was becoming a nutritionist, I was trying to help her, but I just didn't have the tools, and I didn't know, and we lost her. And I feel she was my guiding light. Her loss was so painful that, and that medical medium book was talking about MS as well, was talking about different stories. And so suddenly I had that aha moment. Like literally, when I went back home after that conference, my life was altered. I was on a hunt. Mm. And what happened was, I think I was guided because I had an opportunity to, of course, jump into medical literature. And it was a lot of literature, a lot of literature. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a full-time job. And then I started to look at the testing. And there was a lot in literature again. And I was starting to learn that it was a hot mess. Testing was not done properly. Testing was not interpreted properly. So I started to ask my patients to test, and I started to see patterns, and then when I was doing my doctoral degree, imagine that 1 in a million opportunity when one of my instructors, one of my, teachers, it was the first cohort, and he only taught that one cohort. He never taught again. Part of his training was virology. Mm-hmm. Where do you learn virology? Nowhere.
Right.
I was taking, trainings from Institute for Functional Medicine. There was nothing. There was nothing nowhere. Pasteur University, nothing.
Right.
They still don't do it there because I was trying to put EBV on their agenda. No, they're not there yet. Like, it's not even there.
Right.
And so with Dr. Vasquez, I was able to see things about viruses that nobody ever taught us anywhere. Mm-hmm. And that started to solidify the protocol that I was trying to build. And as I built the protocol, as I tested it on the ground, I was starting to realize that my community was the community of chronically ill people with this virus and complications. Because for me, it started with, it was the progression of gut issues, the CBAL, did a lot of CBAL for a number of years, starting at Hopkins. And then Hashimoto, a lot of Hashimoto's, like, wait a second, that Hashimoto's like, whoa, Hashimoto, there's this big umbrella, Hashimoto's, this, that, autoimmunity, and there's the EBV.
Right.
So, and then I started to see results and I was blown away. And so my husband insisted I write the book. My friends, my mentors, everybody around just decided that I needed to write the book. I didn't have a life. I was so overworked. I said, no way. I've never written the book. Books? No way. Well, guess what? I wrote this book, and it's a big book. And it wrote itself, and I don't know how I wrote it. It just wrote. I just sat and wrote and sat and wrote and sat and wrote because
you had the knowledge in your head. You just had to put it on paper.
Yeah, I think I was guided because the work that I did clinically all these years in practice since 2005 was really focused on proper detoxification, sustainable environmental toxicity, and sustainable human diet. And all these things that I had a detox program, and people were turning around from autoimmunity. And when I started to look at EBV, my life's work was exactly matching the science for EBV. It's like, that's not a coincidence.
Right. No, it's
not.
That's
why I had all the materials, I had all the diets, I had all, it was just so fitting perfectly. It's like, that has to be guided.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That has to be guided. And then Marlena, my friend, came in my dream once, way back. I was standing on a stage. It was empty. There were many chairs, empty. And she was sitting in the last row, the last chair on the right, like beaming and smiling and very proud of me. And I have goosebumps when I say it. So I said, okay, I have to step out, and I have to do this.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how it started. And since then, the book somehow happened, and all that happened, and we've been working tirelessly to create the book, but then to create a sustainable program for any person that is ill, to have inexpensive services, free services. We have the website that has everything about EBV you can imagine. I literally yesterday added the page on foods. That was the last page I never had time to finish, and it's been a couple of years. So we just have really big, long blog on what do you need to know about foods and EBV. It's there.
Right. Great. Yeah.
We're just adding gluten blog to this because I haven't had time to that. I'm just finishing that. So now you have that website. We people don't understand. People go years looking for a doctor to test them for EBV. Doctors refuse, or tested wrong, or misinterpret it. So we partnered with a consumer direct lab. There are consumer direct labs where people can click locally, go get the blood test. It's an appropriate test. They get reported in 24 hours. And I have a whole page for lab interpretation on the website.
That's great.
There's a video recording.
Kasia, let me stop you right there. Wow, you're getting ahead of me here.
We have everything. I want people to know where to go. Yes.
I know. So let's back up. Let's back up and talk about what Epstein Barr virus even is, so people know. What is Epstein Barr virus?
A great opportunist. So Epstein Barr virus has been on this planet for millions of years. Mm-hmm. And according to research, 95% of global population has it. And so the biggest dream for the research community for years has been to find a vaccine. Mm-hmm. Well, now we know how it works. So not a solution. So it is this pleiophoric, I think it's the word, form, which means that the EBV can turn on and off anytime. So let's say, I'll give you an example of my life. I am 55. I've never tested for EBV. I have a life, I have resistance. I'm not ill. I do very well. Mm-hmm. But within the last 12 months, I had a couple of exposures to mold, and I found I'm very sensitive. I got sick. And so I'm starting to heal still. It's a long process, and there's a lot of stress. We're on an island. It's hard to do work because of the internet. We have to move. So there's compounding effect of stress. And stress in medical literature is one of the single most important reactivating factor for EBV. And one of the biggest reactivating factors in my experience is mold. So guess what I did? Like just a week ago, I tested for my EBV, first time in my life. And my early antigen, which is reactivation, was just slightly elevated, just the lowest positive. So and I have triple digits of the other one. So it means I've had it all my life, like most of us. Mm-hmm. And right now with this opportunity, I'm reactivating because there's so many compounding factors, and mold is a big one. Mm. And so this is how it is in life. When you are compromised, when you, it can be physical, environmental, like Wi-Fi technology is really hard. That can reactivate the virus. Mold can reactivate the virus. It just feeds on it.
Right.
Heavy metals can do it. And then nutritional deficiencies can do it. We have evidence in medical literature. If your nutritional status drops, the virus becomes more virulent.
Right.
So there is this, and stress. So all these elements in your life can trickle you into chronic reactivation. So it just, it depends. And then there's the spiritual level and emotional level when people are trapped, when people are not doing the work they came here to do. So there's this friction between the physical and the mental, emotional, spiritual, when they're not being heard or when they're being deceived. These kind of stressors are really deep stressors. And that automatically changes the chemistry and feeds the virus, because these kind of stressors, it's adrenal response, it's cortisol, it's
energetic
as well. And, stress hormones feed the virus too. It's just
absolutely.
So the whole journey is, who am I? Why am I hurting? Why do I have those mystery illnesses that may be masking this big virus? Is my life okay? Cause most people have just been thrown into the pits of life, and the recovery is recovery of your life and your spirit and who you are, your integrity, your, then the physicality, then the diet, environmental toxins, all that. So for me, it's my journey is to help people come to life and fly with it. I also can tell you from my experience, this is anecdotal purely, although not just anecdotal. I would say that a high percentage of our community, at least people that come to me, are highly spiritual beings. We call them empathetic individuals. So they are especially sensitive to negative energies, dark energies, frequencies, and they have capacity to be healers, or they've been healers, or they would be healers in different capacities, in arts or teaching or medicine or energy.
Right.
And so there is this undercurrent, for me, is the vision and mission to help these people physically and emotionally and spiritually, so then they can fly with their life and do the work, the amazing work that they came to this planet to do.
Right.
Now that just gets me so excited.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you mentioned some testing that you said that many doctors don't do. What is the testing and how do you interpret that?
Yeah. So there's 4 antibodies, and even and you have to just realize that the labs have certain way of looking. So even when my ND sent the request for the lab, they tested 3 anyway, even though the 4th one she also requested. So we had to retest and request that one again. So it came. It's just such a mess. So it's VCA. There are 2, IgG and IgM. VCA. And then early antigen is the trouble one. You don't want to miss it. You need to insist on it. And if they don't do it, you have to go back, because this is the key one. Without this, you don't know your active status. Right. And then EBNA, IgG. So these are the 4. And everything is listed on my website there. Just don't worry. Just everything is there.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely give them the information. So how do you know if the person is, how do you know that they're reactivated? What are you looking for specifically when you read the test of the 4 titers?
Well, reactivation will be early antigen being positive.
Okay.
And typically the IgM, the only IgM in the test is typically negative, because it doesn't really show up enough when you reactivate periodically. In literature, it shows up positive in the initial infection.
Right.
And in Western culture, at least when you look at literature, the way we get infected may even be in childhood, infancy, as a sniffle when we don't even know. Parents don't know because it wasn't something serious. It gets more serious maybe when you're a teenager or you go to college and your tongue. So it just depends.
Right. And some people don't, there are some people who don't know that they've had it. And other people say that, know that they've had mono or some kind of illness, particularly in childhood. So mono is the other name for Epstein Barr virus.
Correct. So I'll tell you a story because that can be relevant to many people. We actually have on the ebvonlineprogram.com website, Kate, there's a video of Kate, and that's a very good example of a story because when you look at, we have a quiz on the website. You can take a quiz, and basically it's 4 pages of different symptoms and conditions. When people take the quiz, sometimes they don't realize, oh, I've had that. I have mosquito bites really mess me up. I have infections from them. Oh, I've had this, I've had that. And Kate was saying, I had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when I was a kid and nobody ever knew what it was. But she said, I missed 6 months of school in high school. It was very traumatic. I had a nickname because of that. And so it's like, and I knew her for a few years for other issues. And I didn't even know she came back with Hashimoto's, and, they tested properly. So she instantly knew what she had, Hashimoto's and EBV. But then, she talks about the trajectory of her life. Like, I would get depressed and suicidal, but I'm not depressive. She's a very joyful person. She sparkles,
So you're saying that when she was reactivated, that when she was reactivated, she would have the depression and suicide.
Oh, yes. Depression, overweight, she would gain 20 pounds. She would curl up in bed and she was completely, she told me that she thought she was dying at some point. She didn't tell me that when we jumped on the protocol and worked through it. She told me afterwards, like, you gotta be kidding. It's like, she was in her 40s then. It's like, I thought I was just dying. I was so depressed, so overwhelmed. So yeah, that's exactly, and anxious. Anxiety, depression are very common. And oftentimes people will say, I'm not a depressive person. I'm not an anxious person. I don't understand. I have anxiety attacks. I can't get in the car. I can't drive or fly anymore.
Right. Yeah. So after working with them, do you find that the titers decrease over time or reach a more normal level? Because I know they probably wouldn't go back to normal completely. But
no, you'll be tagged.
A lower level. Do the titers come down?
So first of all, when you test your EBV, you want to test it when you feel the worst, like, a truck ran you over. Because early antigen is short. A few weeks and we'll go under. So you can miss it. So let's say a good example is I was teaching a clinician. She says, I have a EBV case, but she just tested and early antigen is normal. So what the heck do we do? And I said, okay, well, when did she test? January. When did she feel like the truck ran her over? Thanksgiving. That's a long time. You don't know how this early antigen was dancing. But Thanksgiving is stress, a lot of food that don't support you, a lot of compounding factors, maybe traveling stress, who knows. Thanksgiving is not easy for a lot of people. So if she had tested then, the early antigen would be spiking probably, would have spiked. So when realistically, it's all about quality of life. I've had quality of life with my health. I didn't have any urgency to test EBV until now. So, and I have triple digits of the long term. There's 2 long-term antibodies that stay with you for life. They're not going to go to normal. And you have to keep it in mind and not get discouraged. Like, oh, I feel great, but I look at those, they are triple digits. So therefore, I'm not doing well. Yes, you are doing well. They're going to stay. They can fluctuate a little higher or lower as your condition improves. But they're not going to drop to 0.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
don't think
expect.
I didn't anticipate that they would ever drop to zero, but they
Correct.
might drop to, I was wondering if they would drop to, let's say, 4 times the levels to 2 times the level.
Correct. Something like that. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. Mhm.
Yes. That's what I've seen happen.
Or you can have, the worst case scenarios when people have more than 600 or more than, when you don't have a number, you have a range.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly you have like 550 and people are upset. Oh, it was more than 600 and now it's 550.
Mm-hmm.
Well, celebrate because it may have been 2000s.
Right.
Now you have a number, you can track it, and it probably will keep, fluctuating maybe a little lower. So
Right.
yeah, so people sometimes get stuck on these numbers, and it's not about the labs, as 100%. It's about the quality of life and what you do, how you feel.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I find that most of my patients have high titers of Epstein Barr virus. But it is something that I include in my panel of
Awesome.
testing for sure. We've had a couple changes where it's not included in one panel, but I have to add it in a different.
You have to add it in, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's been interesting to follow that. And also what people need to know is that Epstein-Barr virus is a trigger for autoimmune diseases.
Oh, yes.
Particularly Hashimoto's. I know you've mentioned that, but I think I need to connect the dots for people who are watching that. And it's not just Hashimoto's. There's other things that Epstein-Barr virus is connected to, right?
Correct. Oh my gosh. When I was writing the book, I'll never forget, I come from the gut area. And so I was just finished with the book and it's like, okay, I'm ready. And then I had that thought, well, what about Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis? Because these are the biggest inflammatory gut issues. I was like, this like not even in my mind. And I go into medical PubMed and I look at studies and think there are a couple of consistent studies that about 61% of either of those are triggered by the virus. Like, what? It doesn't mean by the time you get to a person with this condition, you can clear this condition and turn around, because it may be too late. But it's like, and then the laundry list of autoimmune disorders is enormous, really, which simplifies our life potentially if we realize that. There was a beautiful study by Dr. Harley in 2018, I believe, when he looked at a particular protein from the virus. When the virus is in the cell that is infected, that protein goes into the nucleus and can turn on the DNA areas coding for autoimmunity, like turn it on. And one of them is celiac. We have 2 studies on celiac. One was kind of indirect association that, people that were gluten-free and had celiac and were not thriving, like 73% had reactivated EBV. That's pretty profound. And then Dr. Harley comes with a study saying that you can have the gene for celiac and be perfectly fine. It's not expressed. You're eating gluten. Everything is good. Suddenly you have this activation of your virus, and suddenly you continue eating gluten and you get really sick from it. And you are confused why, what just happened. I see that after that study, the first study before Harley, I started to notice, because in our community, gluten is a big issue, right? Big conversation. Right. And so there's that. But he also said there's 7 conditions that can be turned on if you have the gene with that one protein. And that is diabetes type 1, multiple sclerosis, celiac, obviously, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. What else was there? There's 2 more. IBD, so Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. And I'm missing one. I think rheumatoid arthritis.
Did you say lupus?
Yes, lupus is on. Yes, lupus is classic. Right. Hashimoto's was not on that particular list, but that's just one protein that he discovered. And that's a cause, that is like black and white. Right. That's not association. Right. So, yeah. So,
So what can people do if they find, like for me, I have Hashimoto's, and that definitely was triggered from Epstein Barr virus. It was, immediately after I had Hashimoto's thyroid storm. It was postpartum too.
Oh yes,
So it's
yeah,
a
that's
combination
classic.
of things. Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
I felt like I was hit by a truck.
Yes.
Sure.
That is very common in women, actually, and I wish more doctors knew about that. Because I think the trick with this situation in particular is that within 30 minutes or so, once you have the baby, there is this 360-degree change in hormones. And the hormone changes. The hormones is what feeds on the virus. Plus, baby gets all the good stuff, you're depleted. So your nutritional status is so low. You're really vulnerable. You're exhausted. So the stress level on the body, the physical and the mental and all that, and the hormonal changes, it's a perfect storm. And so that postpartum depression oftentimes is Hashimoto's, which oftentimes is triggered by EBV. That's the common trajectory. If that could be part of the medical practice, like knowing that for the women that go in labor, that would just change the world for women, honestly.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit more, dive into that a little bit more. And, so what do you think medical practitioners should do at that point? They've just had a baby, right? And, they maybe have Epstein Barr. Like how should they support a person who's in that
woman? In France, the government gives you a doula. She cooks for you, she cleans for you. I think the first thing is, something like that would be in the ideal scenario. And there is the nutrition status, is restored. There are supplements, there's great food, and there rest. I would say testing right away. If something is off, testing EBV right away, and testing for, thyroid antibodies right away. And basically, the foundation diet is high antioxidant diet. And we are fruitophobic, regretfully, even in functional medicine. Fruits in the right combination, the right place, have the highest value, antioxidant value, fiber value, the right sugar for the brain.
Yeah. What fruits? Tell me more about which fruits, like berries? Obviously berries.
Obviously berries, obviously wild berries, like wild blueberries, papaya, apples, pears. These are cherries in season. Eat the whole bowl. Just gorge into the cherries, no problem. People have gut problems, they can't consume fruits, and that's not a human problem. That's the gut problem. There's other things like infections or co-infections or candida, fungal or SIBO, you have to work with that. But antioxidants, and antioxidants are in plants. And, and sustainable plants are, you come from India, so legumes, lentils, beans, brown rice. Just these are very inexpensive, sturdy, sustainable foods. Right. That provide a lot of fiber to feed your T-Rex, to feed your microbiome, T-Rex rebuild your immunity. Microbiome builds your immunity. Very simple things, enjoyable foods, and maybe decreasing that. It's just very simple. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds. I'm not concerned with nuts with EBV, because as you introduce lysine, you have to have enough lysine in the system, so that would be a great supplement. And then you can enjoy nuts. It's just there's so many foods. Right.
Lysine is an amino acid that helps it works as an antiviral, so to speak.
It also builds collagen. And has all kinds of applications, actually, interestingly. So by the time you have EBV, chronic EBV that manifests in autoimmunity, for example, like Hashimoto's, food is great, but it's not enough. I find that you really need to have a strategic and pretty robust and pretty aggressive supplement protocol. But it's all based on what is the research saying, and then what is my clinical practice saying? Because there's some promising research that came, But when I used it in my practice, it wasn't worth it.
Right.
And
So
said, no.
what would you say were the top 5 supplements that you would use? L-lysine is definitely one of them.
You're gonna love that. Selenium.
Yeah.
Selenium.
Selenium.
Yeah, you're thinking about thyroid. Selenium, absolutely. Selenium is amazing. And we go up to 800 micrograms. Really aggressive. So you have to 600, 800, depending on the size of the person. Selenium, NAC, we go really aggressive because NAC is well tolerated up to 4,500. People don't know. Yeah. And lysine, we go about 3,000 milligrams. So 500 milligram lysine, that's going to help you with your little thing, right? Herpes, but we need heavy lifting, like sustainably every day to turn it off. Right. So these licorice is the only herb that is in my foundational protocol, because I find licorice in particular is a stellar.
Is a what?
A stellar. It's just a multitasker.
Oh, okay.
For EBV. And it's appropriate because in our community, many people also have adrenals that are really fatigued. They really have been at it a long time. And that kind of boosts that adrenal function as well. Brings up the blood pressure a little bit because a lot of people
that's the thing you have to be careful with.
Yeah, that's the thing you have to be careful. Yep.
Yeah. Is there any reason why you wouldn't use DGL?
Oh, DGL has nothing to do with viral support.
It has to be licorice. Yeah.
It has to be real licorice. And people can start with licorice tea actually. Earlier in the day, that is a little milder. So, test and trial. And with blood pressure, you just have to make sure you don't have so much sodium, you have enough magnesium, calcium in diet, so kind of and you can take 5 days on, 2 days off. You can play with it on and off, so you don't that blood pressure doesn't go up. Right.
Well, with tea, it's not as strong as taking an actual capsule. Yeah, you do have to be careful with blood pressure with the capsule. Yeah. And one more. What's the fifth one?
Oh, vitamin C, vitamin E. We then add
vitamin D.
Vitamin D is self-explanatory. And vitamin E, vitamin C. Very simple things apparently, but when you put them in combination, magic starts happening. It's like, oh, I had a woman in New Zealand that was depressed and almost suicidal because she couldn't take care of her children. She had 2 daughters and she was just on the sofa watching her husband, try to help and all that. She was completely suicidal almost. And then we started that aggressive initial piece of the protocol, and then 2 weeks later I talked to her and she says, is there a placebo effect, because I can't believe that I'm feeling better? It's like, what is going on? it actually is, you can turn it off. It's a virus, computer virus. You can turn it off, you can modulate it. It's not, people are terrified of it because they're scared of all, cancer, autoimmunity, and all this. Right. But it's not a monster. It's just a predictable virus. Right. It's predictable, it's treatable, and it's reversible. And I'm quoting medical research.
Right. Yeah. And, a lot of times when people have one virus, they are susceptible to other viruses.
Yes. It gets sticky.
Yes.
You have H. pylori, you have SIBO, you have gut motility issues, and maybe your vagus nerve is actually affected by the virus. And then the gut goes. Maybe you have molds and you start having fungal infections. Right. Because it
opens the door of compromising. It's one of those things that opens the door and compromises your immune system.
Well, if you are compromised for all these reasons, this is when the EBV comes to play. Right. And also there is a concept in medical literature called transactivation between species. So if you reactivate EBV, you can also reactivate strep or staph or H. pylori if you have it. Or if you have, let's say, H. pylori and you have your dormant EBV, that infection can reactivate EBV. Transactivation, very common. So there's a bucket, there's a bucket. Right. And if you have just straightforward EBV, like if you do, our program is straightforward, simple, that's what it is. But oftentimes there are other things in the bucket.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So you try the protocol and maybe it works 60%, but you're not well, really. Like,
Right.
well, we're looking for mold. We're looking
Right.
for, we have to turn off the volume on the Wi-Fi technology in your home. You
Yeah.
have to, it's like, what is it? What is it that is compounding this? Because this should work.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We see a lot of the same kinds of patients, and you're right. It's really reducing that rain barrel, taking those things out of the bucket to, support your immune system and not be so burdened. For sure. Yeah. So we need to close. I do want to let people know how to find you. And you have, we're going to have in the show notes 2 free gifts from your the link that I'll share in the show notes. And they have to put an order number 5555 into that.
Easy.
And they'll be able to find you at www.ebvhelp.com, and also find you on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, and you have your own website by your name, www.kasiakines.com as well.
Yeah.
So all that will be in the show notes. I am so pleased that you have come to my show and talking about Epstein Barr virus. I've been wanting this for a year now. Finally, we got you.
So excited. Oh my gosh. Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
You're a busy woman. And so you have so much knowledge. And if anyone's interested, find her book on Amazon. And if this is something that you are interested in knowing more about, but ultimately the functional medicine approach is really what works, whether you have depression, anxiety, or Epstein Barr virus as a root cause. We're putting the pieces together and connecting the dots for everybody here. So thank you so much. God bless you.
Good job. Good job. Thank you so much. And keep working your magic. Keep working. Keep doing what you're doing. We need you to.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.